Hello and welcome back. This is Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana, and you are watching Marksman TV. Today I have another tabletop review and comparison for you. We will be taking a look at the Steyr AUG A3M1 and the Israeli IWY Tavor X95. We will start off with an unboxing, then we will cover the brief history of both of these rifles, as these are the semi-automatic counterparts to their military assault rifles, being the Israeli like I said, X95, and then the Austrian Steyr AUG. And then from there, we'll do a comparison from the barrel end to the butt end, just going over to the specs differences. So if you're looking into getting one of these two rifles, you will kind of have a general understanding of the differences. If you've seen our other videos, you know the platform. Let's go ahead and get into it now. Alright, we'll go ahead and start with the unboxing of the IWY Tavor X95. Here we have a cardboard box. Go ahead and open it up. Here in this blue bag, we will find our rifle. Go ahead and pop this out of here for you. Here we do have a chamber flag inserted, so I will go ahead from a weird angle, pull this back to the rear, and pop that guy out of there. And then there is our rifle, which I will set to the side. Here we do have a cleaning kit with actually some very high quality cleaning tools in here. Normally when you get this kind of stuff that comes with a firearm, it's usually very cheap stuff that'll get you by. Here's just a little brush, cleaning rods, a little bottle you can fill up with your favorite oil to take to the range with you. Just actually really cool and thorough kit here. And then here's some QD sling swivel studs here you can add. Moving all of that aside, we do have our warranty information and instruction manual here. Comes with one 30-round PMAG with a window, and also we have our gun safety log here. Now getting into the Steyr AUG, we'll go ahead and turn it up on end, and then we'll open it up from the top. And then inside here, you will see our AUG rifle. I'll go ahead and remove this protective cardboard housing here. Right over here we do have one 30-round magazine. Of course, this is the standard Austrian Steyr waffle mag. Here we have an instruction manual booklet. Go ahead and open this up, and here is our rifle. On the front and the rear you will find little protective caps here for the optic lens if yours does come with an optic. And we will set that aside, and that is it. So let's go ahead and do a brief history lesson on these two rifles. The Steyr AUG was designed in the 1960s by Steyr, and it was adopted into the Austrian Army as the STG-77 in 1978. It did replace the STG-58 FAL, which was a 7.62 by 51 NATO rifle. It has been the standard military rifle for the Austrian armor from 1978 until today. It is also used by Argentina, Australia, Bolivia, Ecuador, Ireland, New Zealand, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan, just to name a few. It is a short stroke gas piston design, and it does have a rotating locking bolt. So let's go ahead and get into the IWY Tavor. It was designed and produced by IWY and made in three major variants: the TAR-21, the CTAR-21, and the MTAR-21. In 2001 to 2002, the original design, the TAR-21, went to trials against the then used M16 and the M4 platforms by the IDF. The IDF found that the Tavor did prevail through their testing, so in 2006 a decision was made to move to the Tavor TAR-21. The TAR-21 is what we know as a standard model Tavor on the U.S. civilian market today. In 2009, the IDF did upgrade to the MTAR, which is a closely more resembling the current today X95. The MTAR did go through service changes into what is known as the today X95 configuration by the IDF and IWY. It was also known as the Micro Tavor, as it is shorter and more compact than its previous counterpart, the TAR-21. Now let's go ahead and get into the overall specifications of the two rifles, starting up here with the Steyr AUG. It does have an overall length of 28.15 inches overall, with a barrel length of 16 inches. This, of course, is the version with the optic, which does weigh in at 8.8 pounds. You can also get this with either a short rail or a long rail. The short rail will give you an overall weight of the platform at 7.7 pounds, and the long rail will give you an overall weight of the overall platform at 7.8 pounds. Moving down here into the IWI Tavor, it does have an overall length of 26 1/8 inches overall, with a barrel length on this model of 16.5 inches. The overall weight on this is 7.9 pounds. Now, both of these do come in different color and caliber configurations. Also, some different options can be purchased on these as new from the factory. I will quickly explain those to you now, starting up here with the AUG. Color-wise, it does come in the standard OD green, which you see here. That was the original adopted color for the original AUG A1, but you can still purchase that today. Also, you can get this in black. Also, it can be purchased in flat dark earth, which is what Steyr calls their mud color. And then there is white. Now, the white is a semi-limited edition. Steyr does produce a small run of white AUGs every year. So it is not their mainline production color, but it can be purchased in that color, especially if you live in an area that gets a lot of snow and you want to have that type of color option for you. Barrel length, the original A1 AUGs did come in a barrel length of 14 inches, which of course we can't purchase today unless you want to make this an SBR. 16 inches, which you see here. 20 inches, which was the standard rifle length for the military, and then a 24-inch heavy barrel equipped with a bipod. Now, when the AUG A3 came out, so you got this one here, they did also include an 18-inch barrel option. So, brand new from the factory, this could be purchased in 16, 18, 20-inch configurations. You can also purchase a 24-inch heavy barrel. It'll fit right in here just the same. Options as far as the optic goes, it is either produced with the fixed 1.5 power optic or the 3 power optic, which you see on here. The reticle on the original A1 was just what they called the donut of death. It was just a circle. Now you get what is a crosshair with a circle on the inside. Also, this can be purchased with a short low mount, which is an 11 slot Picatinny rail up on the top, or it can be purchased with a high long rail, which is a little bit taller rail with a 16-inch Picatinny or 16 slot Picatinny rail on the top. So you do have those options there. Of course, you do alter the weight by going with any one of those particular options. Now, MSRP on this with the optic, or I'm not going to say MSRP, but what you can usually find priced on these with the optic is going to be about $2,000 to $2,200. Without the optic, just the standard flat rail configurations, you find them for about $1,600 to $1,700. Now, moving down to the IWI Tavor, of course, you can purchase it as seen here in standard black. They also produce these in OD green and flat dark earth. The barrel length on this is 16.5 inches, but it can also be purchased in an 18.5 inch configuration. Caliber options for these, the AUG does come with a 9mm conversion kit option, so you can purchase that separately if you want to run 9mm. Also, it does have the NATO version. So the NATO version is, or the NATO stock is also in 5.56-223, just like this one here, except the stock does allow for AR-15 magazines, which again they call the NATO version. Now that is going to run you about an extra $300 off of MSRP to get into that configuration. The Tavor does come standard in the 5.56 in NATO, which we see here. Also, it can be purchased in 300 blackout, and there are 9mm versions as well, and conversion kits for the Tavor. Now let's go ahead and talk about the barrels, starting up here with the AUG. We do, of course, on this version have a 16-inch barrel. It is chrome line and cold hammer forged. Now, Steyr does produce the blanks for these barrels, but they are sent to FN, who does finish them and then returns them to Steyr for assembly. On the front here, we do see the iconic tulip flash hider. Now, the standard A1 did have a 3 vent hole flash hider, which did have openings out here at the end. Since then, there is a solid ring to close that off, and a total of 5 vent holes have been added here. Now, because this is a short stroke gas piston operated rifle, there is a gas regulator lever here. There are 3 essential gas regulator options. The first is your standard gas port hole for standard use of ammunition. There is a larger gas port hole, that is if the gun starts to get a little bit dirty, fouled up, or if you're using underpowered or underpressured ammunition. The third is an option that completely closes off the gas system entirely, and that was to be used for launching grenades. One excellent feature as well on the AUG, and I will flip this over real quick, is we do have a little pin here, I guess you would call it a lever. Now, what you do is if the bolt is held open to the rear, and then, of course, well, there's an empty magazine, so there is a hold open there, so that's staying open. But with the bolt to the rear, what we can do is we can push down on that lever which will free our barrel, allowing it to twist and then come off the front. So there is our removed barrel, and this is what kind of leads to the name, the modular or universal rifle platform. Again, 16-inch barrel, but you can purchase an 18-inch or a 20-inch or a 24-inch. And all you need to do is quickly remove the barrel, replace it, and then you've of course altered your barrel length. One other note is they do make these in 1 in 7 twist and 1 in 9 twist. So if you want a different twist rate barrel, all you need to do is purchase that, replace it in the firearm, and you change your twist rate depending on the ammunition you want to run. The quick change barrel system is not necessarily for caliber conversions, although you can do that of course with the 9mm caliber conversion, but to be able to quickly and easily change the barrel length. So I actually find this to be a very practical and usable system. If you want to do long range shooting, throw your 20-inch or even your 24-inch heavy barrel in there. If you want to do short range up close shooting, throw your 16-inch barrel in there if you want something more like a CQB type, more compact platform. So those options are there and available to you. Moving down into the Tavor, we do have a 16.5-inch barrel on this variation. It is chrome lined and cold hammer forged. It does have an A2 flash hider like you would find on an AR-15, with the birdcage serrations on the top, leaving a solid feel on the bottom, of course to mitigate any of that back blast of dirt or anything if you're laying prone in the sand. Now there is a little collar here around the barrel, so it is not free floated. Neither is the AUG, so neither is free floated. Now I've not actually shot this one, so I don't have any personal experience with this Tavor to speak to, but I have heard reports. There is a very thorough video done by the Military Arms channel regarding accuracy complaints with this. Now what he had done is talking about Military Arms channel, is he had removed this collar, making it more of a free floated type design, and he did improve his accuracy by doing that. But I've heard a lot of reports on these being around like 3 to 4 MOA. Steyr AUG, now this one is not my own, but I do own one. I have had a lot of experience, and out of mine with just standard off-the-shelf 223 PMC ammunition, I've been able to pretty consistently achieve about 2 to 2.5 MOA or better. There is, I think, a little bit better accuracy potential out of the AUG. Now let's be serious, these are military medium range combat weapons as the original designs were meant to be. I don't think it's necessary that you have pinpoint accuracy, but if you do want to have that extra added accuracy, I've heard in my own personal experience would say that the AUG is just going to give you a little bit more precision. Now up here on the handguard, underneath this panel, there is a little button here that I can push. Now when I push that, I can move this panel forward, revealing rails underneath. Also on the other side, there is also going to be the exact same thing, and along the bottom. So with those 3 panels removed, and if you consider the top, it is kind of a quad rail setup. On the AUG, your forward hand grip is a vertical grip, which does usually stay in the vertical position. Now, it can be pulled down and moved forward for storage. Usually this is recommended as a means of keeping the firearm in this position for storage purposes. You can bench rest shoot this, however, but I would be leery of placing your hand up here unless you have a glove, because there is a gas port there and you will get gas blow off that if your fingers are anywhere near that, it can definitely scorch you and be unpleasant. So like I said, this is really a storage option, but it can fold down if you do want more of that level type of grip feel. Just be careful of that gas regulator. Now moving back a little bit into the AUG, there was some rail space added here, as well as rail space on top of the optic itself. Of course, if you don't get the variation with the optic, you will just have that flat rail on top. And of course, you do have a QD sling swivel here, so this is a QD sling attachment point right here. Also on the Tavor, you do have QD points on either side, and as you saw when we unboxed it, it does come with those 2 QD sling swivels. Now moving into the sights on both platforms, we'll go ahead and start down here with the Tavor. Now the Tavor does come standard with a very long rail length right up here on the top. It almost looks like there are no sights, but it can throw you off because there are 2, and I will bring this in. There are 2 folding sights here, your rear and your front, and you grab these little tabs, which almost just look like extensions of the rail itself, and pull them up to deploy them. This is a standard fixed post in the front, and you have an aperture rear sight. The front post does have a tritium insert for that nighttime shooting, and it is adjustable. If you want to run your illuminated optic or anything else on there, red dot, whatever, you can go ahead and fold those back out of the way. And again, you have that access to a empty rail space up here on the top. Of course, here on the AUG, we do have this fixed 1.5 power scope on this configuration we have here in front of us. Of course, your Y and X axis adjustment knobs are here, and we do have that rail space on top. And this is kind of an interesting feature that not too many people know about, but there is a makeshift 2-dot sight configuration, iron sight configuration up here on the top. So for quick in close targets or anything you want to switch up to that, you can, or you can place a secondary red dot or anything up here on here, which I've seen a lot of people do. Now, getting into the charging handles, these are both left side charging handles. They are non-reciprocating, which means they are not permanently affixed to the bolt. So when locked open to the rear, the bolt handle is loose, and of course if you do have an empty magazine or that locks open, you can go ahead and just lock this to the front, and then when the bolt drops, it'll reconnect with the charging handle, which will allow you to engage it again. The AUG works the exact same way. So with the bolt to the rear, which I'll go ahead and do, this freely reciprocates back and forth, and it also kind of has that crescent shaped feel, so a little bit of a different feel on the bolt handle itself. You can again lock that forward too when the bolt is open to the rear. One other note is the Tavor, you can switch over the charging handle to the other side. So of course this is left-hand charging, it can be removed, and there is a right-hand slot here which it can be switched over for right-hand manipulation. Now let's go ahead and talk about the triggers, and this is usually a big point of contention when we're talking about bullpup configurations versus traditional rifle configurations. Of course, in a bullpup, your magazine chamber and all of that is located behind the trigger, of course, so that's what makes it that bullpup configuration, making the length of the barrel actually travel predominantly through the internal of the rifle, which makes an overall very low, short package. So your chamber is actually right here, as opposed to most rifles where your chamber would be up here, and then the barrel would travel beyond this point, giving you a longer profile. Now, because of that, there is what is usually known as a transfer bar or a trigger bar that is attached to the trigger, which is actually connected back to the sear, which should be back in this rearward position. So you are getting a lot of trigger stacking and adding a lot of weight to the trigger. That is almost unavoidable in a bullpup. I say almost, I mean the actual design is unavoidable, but it gives you a long, gritty trigger pull, which is almost unavoidable. When we get into the AUG, I'll go ahead and bring this in. We are looking here at about a 10 to 12 pound trigger pull, which is pretty heavy. It does have a very nice, crisp and clean break. So, I mean, it's very quick. It's not really creepy or doesn't have that spongy feeling. I mean, it's actually pretty good, but it is a little bit heavy. The original military configuration is a progressive trigger, so you push it about halfway for semi-auto and all the way for full auto. So you do get a little bit of that feel, that long pull to get to your now semi-automatic pull in this gun. So not the best trigger in the world, but by bullpup standards, pretty average, what you would expect. Now there are some fixes to that, like some of the trigger components back here are plastic or polymer, so you do get a lot of polymer rubbing on polymer, which creates a little bit more friction. There are some little metal caps or pieces you can put in there that are fairly inexpensive, which have been reported to reduce the trigger pull weight quite considerably. Now the Tavor, and when I say in most cases it's hard to get around that actual heavy trigger pull weight, the Tavor actually has a very nice trigger pull weight, which is advertised at about 5 to 6 pounds. I've seen online that people have stated that theirs right in up to about 8, but it's still a very light, crisp, and even break. I mean, it's a very light, 6 to 7 pounds is just about what this feels like. Getting up in here, of course, you have a familiar, if you're into AR-15s, 90-degree safety selector up here. And on the AUG, it is a push safety. Now moving in a little bit towards the rear, and we'll go ahead and start up here with the magazine release on the original Tavor, was placed right back here, which a lot of people complained about because it was easy to, if you're running and gunning or doing competition or anything, it was easy to accidentally bump that magazine release with your hand and drop your mag. So what they've done on the X95 is move to an ambidextrous, so it can be manipulated from either side, standard button magazine release, which is actually, in my opinion, a really good design feature. So you push that from either side and it does remove your magazine, and they slide back in. Of course, your magazine is an AR-15 PMag or military aluminum mag, anything, you know, AR-15. So you do have that nice standard of use there. Now, the magazine release on the AUG is, of course, still back here in the rear, and you do have to manipulate it here. It's just a push button. Being that it is on the bottom and the center, it is, of course, ambidextrous. It's just as easy to get to from the left shoulder or the right. So, of course, you push that in to drop your mag. As we mentioned, this is a 30-round Austrian PMag specific to the AUG. You can get that NATO stock to use AR-15 magazines if you wish. The bolt release on the AUG is located on the left-hand side of the rifle. And of course, this little sling swivel is not a QD mounting point just like it is at the front, because this is a cross pin to keep your back plate on, to remove that to get your trigger group out, which I'll show you in a second. And you do have a QD mounting point up here on the left side for a single point sling if you want to use that. There's not one on the other side, but you do have QD sling mounting points on the left and right side here at the rear of the buttstock. Now I'm going to go ahead and get into the disassembly of both rifles for you. So we'll start here with the AUG. We will go ahead and remove our magazine and set it to the side. I'm going to go ahead and pull the bolt to the rear and lock it in the open position, which of course you can see is kind of difficult to do, but I got it stuck open there. And then I can push on this little button here down to remove my barrel. And I'll set that aside. Now I can carefully go ahead and drop my bolt into the forward position. Right here, this is our locking lever, our locking crossbar that keeps the receiver and the, I guess I should say, the upper and lower receivers connected. So I'll go ahead and keep some back pressure here. Now I will go ahead and push this across from left to right. It's going to be a little bit stiff, but we'll get that across, and with that fully protruded out this side, I can go ahead and separate the stock section from the receiver section. Now I can go ahead and just pull my bolt assembly out the rear here. Now the receiver section here is an aircraft aluminum, which is machined. So we do have that section here. Of course, the lower section is a polymer construction. Now, showing you the bolt, this is interesting. Here's your bolt assembly, and it does have a rotating locking head, similar to what you would see on an AR-15. Just the bolt head is what you would see in an AR-15. What we have here is these are the two, it's connected to these two stainless steel guide rods. Now you do notice that the two guide rods are a little bit different on the end. Well, this is actually this rod here, because this does sit on the right hand side, which meets with your gas regulator. This is actually your gas piston, so your short stroke gas piston, which kind of doubles as a secondary guide rod. So interesting, unique design there. Moving all these parts out of the way, I'll go ahead and bring the stock section back over. Now, like we mentioned earlier, oops, just bumped my camera. Like we mentioned earlier, this sling swivel also acts as a cross pin, which keeps the butt plate on and keeps your trigger guard in place. There is a little detent on the back of the butt plate. I will push and then pull out the cross pin. Which, with this cross pin removed, I can go ahead and pull the butt plate off and then grab my trigger group from the rear and pull that out. It is in a little polymer housing here, so if you want to go that far to clean. Now, like I mentioned, here's the hammer and the sear. They're both made of polymer, so you do get that kind of polymer on polymer interface there. Pretty interesting in design, kind of like a Lego parts gun. But you can also go a little bit further and take out the gas regulator and that sort of stuff for cleaning, but I'm not going to do that in this disassembly. Now we will get into the Tavor for disassembly, and this you may need a punch. It depends on how tight the cross pins are in your particular rifle, so we'll just keep that handy just in case. So we will go ahead and remove our magazine and make sure, of course, that the hammer is cocked. The hammer will have to be in the back position for disassembly of this. So we will start here on the opposite side. We'll go ahead and flip it over. there is a cross pin up here at the top where my thumb is. I will go ahead and push on that. And if I can't pull it out through the back, I can without using a punch. We'll go ahead and do that. Now there is a detent on these cross pins, but they are held captive and will not come out, so don't try and force those out. That will allow your butt plate to swivel down, and you can grab your bolt, carrier and piston assembly. This is a long stroke gas piston system. We do have the bolt down here and the carrier, of course, and your recoil spring system. You can further take that apart if you wish. So now what I can do, and I'll go ahead and use my punch to help me with this, is there are 2 more captive cross pins here. I'll go ahead and push those out using the punch. And then I can take my bolt release lever and kind of turn that down, and then reach in here and grab my sear and hammer pack and pull that out the bottom if I want to go ahead and clean that there as well. Well, that's all the time I have for you today on these. If you enjoyed that, please let me know by hitting that like button. If you have any questions, please go ahead and leave those down in the comment section for me. I try to get to as many of those as I can. If you enjoyed this and want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. Anyway, this is Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana. You are watching Marksman TV. We will see you next time.